The Agenda with Michael Knight on News Radio 560 KPQ and KPQ.com.
It's 1:38 here at News Radio 560 KPQ, 77 degrees outside. Let's meet our special guest, Sue Kane from the North Central Educational Services District, people behind STEAM or STEM, and that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. All the smart people that we need to get us out of the mess we're in right now. Hi, Sue. How are you?
Hi, doing well. Thanks for...
Haven't seen you in a while.
It has been a little while.
Can we start by finding out where STEM came from? Where did it emerge from, and how did it get going?
Where did science, technology, engineering, and math come from?
Well, the project that would allow people to study those subjects.
Oh, sure. I can tell you as far as, locally, we have an alliance of STEM educators and community enthusiasts and the STEM network, and that was actually started by a grant from Washington STEM as an organization.
And when it began, was it something that was necessary, that was totally needed?
It was actually. We had an opportunity to do a year-long planning process and some needs assessment and some asset mapping and find out, if we were to work intentionally, there's some things that we could do or some opportunities to make an impact. And everyone came together over a year-long process, and what we came away from was, was a body of work that we've been working on now for 2.5 years.
Is this something for advanced placement students only?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. STEM is one of those things that even if you are not going to be an engineer, the skill set that you might have in critical thinking and problem solving and using resources, in understanding, just the process of design. There are STEM skill sets at use in most people's day-to-day, and definitely in the jobs that are in Washington State.
So when you started working on STEM, you were right there at the beginning in terms of its outlay here in the Valley?
Yeah, I've had an opportunity to be around for the start of our collaboration, yeah.
Now let's talk about what's happened today, because it's evolving quickly, isn't it?
It is.
The whole idea behind STEM.
Yeah.
Or STEAM, I keep forgetting to say.
It's gaining steam, we'll say.
There you go.
Pun intended, I suppose. But no, the most recent kind of incredible news is we partnered with Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, which is a public-private investment. We have a lot of big STEM employers in Washington State who said they're not getting the workforce that they need, and they actually put some funding aside, and those dollars were matched by the legislature, state dollars. And WSOS is the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship, awards 1,850 scholarships to low to middle income students who want to pursue a STEM baccalaureate degree. Now, locally, we put together a campaign to get kids to apply for this, because this is $22,500, this scholarship.
And when do they apply?
And they apply in January, February. And so we did a weekly campaign and provided guidance counselors with some ways to identify students and kind of help them through the application process, and then provided them with data every week to understand who had hit submit on that application and who hadn't yet, who we needed to follow up with. And the result of that effort has kind of been incredible. We have more than $1 million coming into the Wenatchee region locally for this STEM scholarship. We got 48 of those scholarships between Eastmont, Wenatchee, Kashmir, and Quincy school districts.
And where did that money come from?
It's a private-public partnership. So some of that money is state dollars, and some of that money is an investment from companies like Boeing and Microsoft and a number of others.
Your associate, Pete Phiilips, just came into the studio. Welcome, Pete. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to be here.
You're on the run today, so good. You made your meeting. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Well, if I were to ask you what STEM has done today for the kids of this valley, what would you say? Well, what should we take away from one day's worth of STEM education?
Yeah, I think that, like Sue said, it's not really anything new at this point, but what we're trying to do is just give it some exposure and try to align the students that are coming out of school with a job and a career that they can do in this valley or anywhere for sure, but within our valley for sure.
We know there are tech jobs all over the world. What those jobs are going to be in 5 years, we don't know. But we do know that the minds of people who are in the past would have been scientists or physicists or biologists. Sometimes they get drawn toward tech because it's so they're smart. Smart people are needed for that world, and it's alluring to be taken away by a job that's exciting like that. But could these people be scientists if they weren't coding? Yeah. Is the mind open for that? Now that you give them the opportunity to be a A true scientist as opposed to a coding god?
I think the underlying assumption there is that a true scientist doesn't use computer science. And if you had heard, I just talked to a colleague of mine who works for the Fish and Wildlife who's using computer science computational modeling to understand stream flow and salmon population dynamics.
We had some of those people on the show the other day.
Oh, yeah.
They were so mad. They were really great. They were. I was just I was really involved in how they've got the river and the health of the river down to a science. Imagine that.
A computer science, even,
yeah.
you know? Yeah, so the thing about it is that, the science that is being done in the field right now is largely dependent on computational skills, on modeling. We're able to do things in a space that we can see and we can manipulate, and there's no parsing the two out anymore.
Science, technology, engineering, math. Sometimes people will have a gift for one of those, but maybe not test well. How did they get into the program if the gift is there, but we don't see the results in testing yet?
Yeah, that's one of the things that we want to do in K-12. We want to start systemically with giving kids some exposure to technology at an early age, getting them playing games, which is easy to do with our kids, and moving that to the next level where they start to build and engineer and create. And then that paves the way for them to look at different opportunities in high school as they start to talk about internships or job shadowing, or what we're really working on is trying to bring industry into the classroom so that we can see what jobs are out there and what jobs are available in the Wenatchee Valley from
Sue was just saying that there's a shortage of certain jobs based on the needs of the industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do they want that we're not doing? What sort of student do they want? What sort of skills do they want the child to have by the time they get to high school or beyond?
Yeah, one example that we hear all the time is in agriculture. As we look at our larger fruit sheds around the valley, the work that's happening there is highly technical, and it's moving away from manual labor and the way we used to do things with pencil and paper to a computer system. Digitize the analytics that are coming out of a cold room that stores apples or a truck that's getting loaded with cherries. That type of worker is becoming more and more technical in that they're supporting the system rather than doing the work.
I think it was you or both of you who said that there's an example of the type of student who's not had a successful time in school because they just haven't found what they love yet. And when they do find it, it changes everything about them. So I would think that the STEM program, when someone is a young scientist but doesn't know what's wrong with them, they figure out what their gifts are, and it changes everything.
We have several success stories of kids that are in a computer science program in high school that didn't even know what computer science was, and now they're going to either continue their schooling, go on to higher ed, go to a 4-year school at Eastern or Central, when they had no idea what the definition of computer science or programming really was.
I remember so clearly the story of Albert Einstein, who was told that he had no gifts whatsoever. His math teacher told him that he would never be a mathematician or really amount to much of anything. And you can almost forgive the teacher because he was a slow student. He had all these gifts, he had this incredible mind, but he didn't have the grades and he didn't have the results that they were looking for, until he found himself working on his own, until he had his own skill set, and it made the difference. Now, I remember when I was in school, they were saying, we don't have enough scientists, and no one ever said, well, what's your program like? I said, well, you can dissect a frog. What more do they want? The idea was for scientists to be renewed and excited about their time in school, they have to be challenged scientifically, and that's not something that every school is capable of doing. How do you guys do it?
Well, that's the thing, is that I think a lot of educators approaching this could be intimidated by the idea of having to be the experts and lead students through this. And we really try to focus on a frame shift. The idea behind STEM is that the student already has, the framework, and you are going to facilitate that learning, but you're actually going to try to get out of their way, and you're going to try to let them, their innate curiosity and their innate problem solving be developed.
Good answer. Now, you got to have a good teacher to allow that to happen, or to encourage it, or to see it before them, right?
You have to have a supported educator. So you have to have a system that recognizes that is education. And So a lot of times this works on a state level facilitating, on an administrative level facilitating, on a teacher level. You're facilitating that learning rather than putting it. Knowledge doesn't happen to a student. You want to actually nurture the development of that through the student. And so more and more our educators are finding themselves in that support system to be able to do that. And that's being recognized as teaching.
So the student flourishes in a separate, new environment, but the teacher also has to be part of that environment. They have to play along. They have to be equal to the test.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you want to think the test is for. Is the test for showing that the student
getting
knows
out of the way.
The test of getting out of the way. I hear you. Yeah, you're right. They have to be able to be supported in getting out of that way.
What results do we have in terms of numbers? People always want to know about numbers. Kids going to college, kids going to 2-year schools, to 4-year schools. What do the numbers tell you?
We've got some really positive outliers in this North Central region. And when we compare across the state, kids are actually going directly to college at a greater percentage here than they are elsewhere in the state. We've got some great partnerships between our local school districts and the programs for certificates and college. And that system is something that we should be really proud of.
Are there STEM programs in all the schools in all the state? I know that's an exaggeration or a big order, but...
It's a harder question than you think because there's still some awareness about what STEM is. And so, yes, there are STEM elements in all of our schools at this point. But who has access to those? And are they after school? Are they before school? Are they during school? You have kids that get pulled out and they don't get access to that. So we do have it in most schools, but we're still working with our educators to be able to make sure that all students have an opportunity to do this.
So in school A, my STEM class for science of some sort would be third period, but some it would be after school?
Yeah, some is definitely after school, especially in the lower grades. It's really hard on our educators right now. We've mandated that they spend so many minutes of the week on English and so many minutes of the week on math exclusively. And it's really hard for them to find time to put one more thing in there when we talk about STEM and computer science.
Well, if someone could get the American kids to stop ending their sentences with prepositions, I would be happy. So we need a little bit more time on English, but then take them directly to the science class for STEM.
Or we can teach them some of the English language arts through some of the STEM instruction. I mean, that's the whole idea is the more integrated you get, the more real world you get. And the more integrated you get, the more time you actually have in your day. So,
what do you think the next step is for STEM in the Valley? Is there a way for it to evolve? Is there another step or something you want to roll out that hasn't happened yet?
Well, I can tell you, actually, Pete could tell you where we're headed this summer, and that'll be a next big step for us.
Okay, Pete, what's going on this summer?
So, before I get there, though, I think that what we see is a lot more, as we talk about integration in the classroom, right? English and history and social studies and PE are integrated into science and technology more and more. I think the next step is just to continue to build this partnership with our community and with the employers in the Valley that can reach out a little bit more to the schools and vice versa so that we're truly integrating that handoff from high school to the world of work or high school into college.
What companies want to work with the STEM program?
Oh, everybody does, right? Everybody needs an employee. Yeah. And so,
but are there any that rely on you for their future employees?
Well, the low-hanging fruit are manufacturing companies that are using this type of equipment and doing CNC or building or engineering types of equipment. I think that our agriculture is another huge step that is partnering with high schools to employ those kids right out of school.
Does the STEM program teach us that this could have taken place years ago if we had the right program in place? That the scientific mind is something that we all have. Others are just discovering it now because the program's there to enlighten them.
The thing about it is that we've all heard somebody say that the jobs that are going to be available to students now don't even exist yet, and that's probably true for the jobs that we have now. I know without email communication, probably 80% of my job didn't exist before the internet, right? So that's probably true for any generation. The STEM skill sets and why they're so valuable is that they do prepare you for that yet unknown day to day. And so if you're a problem solver, if you're an innovator, if you're able to, find out where your resources are and do that inquiry type of learning, you're going to be useful in whatever that next frontier looks like, even though we don't know what that is yet. So.
No, there's a great mystery to it, but there's a mystery about what makes someone smart. It really can't be defined very well, except that smart people we rely on them. So there's a student out there right now that just discovered today through the STEM program that he or she is smart. Didn't know it before that. Now they're going to be a scientist. I think that's so cool. Thanks for being here today, okay?
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about this. We'll talk about STEM in the future. Did we leave anything out?
We did.
Okay.
One thing, do we have 2 seconds?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
we do.
so we wanted to, one of the things as we look around the corner, we've got our second annual STEM Summit coming up this August 13th. For 4 days, we're going to bring in hopefully about 400 or so educators from around the region. We have 29 school districts in our region that we support, so we're hoping to bring teachers in to get fully absorbed and covered in all things STEM here in Wenatchee.
Excellent. Well, when that's concluded and you know what you've learned from each other, come back. You're always welcome.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sue Kane and Pete Phiilips from the North Central Educational Service.